right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV. Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV. Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome to Millennium News 24 Daily Local News Update. I'm with you, Jasmine McTague, here from Jersey City, New Jersey, watching the news headlines. Now, details this time. First story. 2 young men were charged Wednesday in a shooting that killed one armored car guard and critically wounded another, as well as another shooting shortly after that left 2 suspects, accomplices, dead, and the robbery of a cell phone store in between. Police Superintendent David Brown announced that Antoine Montgomery, 19, and DeAndre Jennings, 21, have both been charged with first-degree murder and also a double homicide in South Chicago community a short time later, which killed two men who Brown said were their accomplices in the early robbery. Montgomery is further charged with one-count armed robbery and unlawful restraints in the robbery of a Boost Mobile store in South Shore. Brown said officers put their own safety at great risk to apprehend the very violent offenders in an effort to involve a SWAT team. Chicago Police Deputy Chief Rahman Mohammed said at 10:19 a.m. Tuesday, three armored car guards were loading an ATM at the Bank of America at 83rd Street and Princeton Avenue. Three assailants out of the total of four involved got out of the vehicle, two of them wielding handguns and the third with a long rifle. The suspects, who were dressed in black, wearing masks, came up and demanded the cash and shot two of the security guards. One of the guards, 47, was shot 6 times, and another, a 46-year-old man, was shot twice. But both were taken to the University of Chicago Medical Center, where Hartz died, and her partner was left in critical condition with gunshots to the lower extremities. Now to our second story. A San Diego area doctor is warning others after she nearly became a victim of a so-called phone scam that has drawn the attention of the county sheriff department. Quote, "They were really aggressive," said Dr. Pooja Vora told Fox. Quote, "They were talking fast, listing all these things off and not really giving you details or a chance to ask. It's threatening. It's scary," Vera said. She received a call Tuesday night from a San Diego number. At the other end of the line, a man's voice introduced himself as Lieutenant Hartman with the San Diego County Sheriff Department. He provided her with a badge number. The man told Vora that two uniformed officers had come to her work and that he'd given the exact address. Quote, "He said they had a subpoena for me to appear as an expert witness in a medical case and that I signed for it," she said. "It isn't a new story for sheriff officers. Last month, the department issued a warning to the public to beware of an arrest warrant phone scam reported by 6 people. They say a Lieutenant Hartman told people they missed court dates and that they should come to the sheriff's headquarters alone. This is a scam," the department said last month. According to the caller, Vora was supposed to appear in court in November, but she didn't show up. The man then said there now was a warrant for Vora's arrest. Vora is, in fact, a doctor at the location the man gave, and he called her personal number, making it more convincing. Vora said she was told she needed to come to the sheriff's department's headquarters in Kearny Mesa immediately to clear up the situation. Quote, "I started to ask more questions like, what's the address again? Can you give me your badge number? What's your name again?" End quote, she said. Ultimately, she says the man grew angry and told her she would need to figure things out without his help and that she would be arrested and then hung up. Vora has heard of at least one other doctor in Southern California who recently received a similar call. Quote, "The specifics they gave, the expert witness for medical case, because you're an expertise and things like that," she said. "They really use professional information to get to you." Of note, the sheriff department wants people to know warrants can't be resolved over the phone or at a department's headquarters. They only would be able to be cleared through the courts. On to our third story. Some schools in Kenosha are shifting to virtual learning for the remainder of the week due to the ongoing Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Multiple schools made the announcement Wednesday night, including Franklin Elementary School, Harborside Academy, Brass Community School, Washington Middle School, and Ruther Central High School. Quote, due to the increased crowds from the Rittenhouse trial, Harborside will be fully virtual for the remainder of the week. Quote, Harborside Academy posted on Facebook. Quote, students should continue to log on to their classes using our usual schedule. Franklin Elementary School noted their attendance area includes the home surroundings, the Kenosha courthouse, as part of their decision to go virtual. Kenosha's Unified School District said the abundance of caution is due to the number of students who walk to and from school, as well as the proximity of the school boundaries to the courthouse. Quote, we understand that this may impact our students in various ways, which is why we want to remind families of our schools not listed above that you may choose to keep your children home if you feel that it is in their best interest, KUSD said in a letter to parents. If you decide to call them in, they will be excused. While we have not been advised of any existing imminent danger, we feel that this is the best course of action to protect our students and staff during an uncertain time. We will continue to work closely with the law enforcement to receive support as needed in the days and weeks ahead. Quote, families of schools moved to virtual learning can contact the food service department to reserve a meal to be picked up at the educational service department. To reserve a meal to be picked up at the educational support center by calling 262 359 6382. KUSD said. Students, parents, and staff are encouraged to check their emails and voicemails for further information. For questions, families are encouraged to contact their school's office. On to the fourth story. A man pulled out a gun and started shooting in the middle of the Aventura Mall. It was all caught on camera as a newly released surveillance video showed. The video released Wednesday morning captured people running for their lives and the injured on the floor, as well as police on the hunt for the shooter. The terrifying scene unfolded on May 8th. On that day, several cell phone videos surfaced showing the chaotic scene inside the mall. Now, 7 News has the surveillance footage 2 days after Aventura police made an arrest. Quote, you were arrested for 3 counts. Counts. 1 moment. Oh, 3 counts of attempted second-degree murder, said Miami-Dade Circus Court Judge Mindy Glaze. Norman Lee Pickens appeared in bond court Tuesday, where his attorney requested a break on the bond. The prosecutor responded by saying 3 people were actually shot. This caused mass chaos, a manhunt within the mall, a very dangerous situation. According to the police, it all began with an argument involving rival gang members out of the Opalaka. In the video, you are able to see men arguing outside the Nordstrom department store. They briefly parted ways, but then a guy in a pink hooded sweatshirt grabs his gun of a man in a black sweatshirt who turned around and started shooting. The gunfire sparked panic in the mall. People ran, hid with store locking their doors, and police searching the mall for the shooter. They tracked down and arrested their suspect months later, his bond being close to $1 million. Now, a short break from our daily English news of Millennium News 24/7. Stay tuned.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome to Millennium News 24/7 Daily Local News Update. Here's our next story, number 5. Georgia's House Speaker David Ralston issued the following statement on the proposed map. The House voted Monday 96-70, mostly along party lines, to approve which draws lines for the 56 Senate districts. Quote, "We are a 50-50 state. We are a battleground state," said Republican B. Nguyen, an Atlanta Democrat. "We are a swing state. This map tells us a different story. This map creates a 60-40 split with the advantage given to the Republican Party for the next 10 years. The Republican drawn map dramatically changes the 6th congressional district now represented by Democrat Lucy McBath. It moves north from Cobb and North Fulton into conservative Cherokee, Forsyth, and Dawson counties, making McBeth's position far more vulnerable to Republican challenger. Quote, "Today's Republicans released another draft map to draw me out of Congress. This only strengthens my resolve to stay in Congress," said McBath in a tweet. At a late afternoon hearing, Gwinnett Republican lawmaker Bonnie Rich defended the redistricting process. "This congressional map represents Georgians fairly, and it's a map where we are proud of. It's not a gerrymandering, but it does not represent the principles we adopted at the beginning of this process," Rich said. North Fulton Democrat Matthew Wilson doesn't think the map is fair at all. "My constituents in the North Atlantic suburbs during the last election, choose a Democrat representative in Congress, choose the Biden agenda, and now they're being pushed in these maps," Wilson said. The map also compacts Democrats' Carolyn Burdu's 7th district with some 6th and draws down Republican Andrew Clyde's 9th deeper into the northern Gwinnett. House Minority Leader James Beverly said, "Georgia is now a purple state and should have district maps to reflect that. Georgia's changed, and we need to respect the people's right to choose the representative of their choice and not have politicians playing games with who they select," Beverly said. These new maps also draws down Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene's 14th District South into a predominantly Democratic area of Austell and Powder Springs. Legislatives and congressional Appointment Committee Chairman Bonnie Rich, a Sawney Republican, defended both the process for drawing the map and the outcome. We believe it is in compliance with the Constitution and the Voting Act, Rich said. The General Assembly must redraw electoral districts at least once every decade to equalize populations after the U.S. Census. Georgia added more than 1 million people from 2010 to 2020, within urban districts generally growing and rural districts generally shrinking. We cannot ignore who those Georgians are, said Democratic State Republican Derek Jackson of Tyrone. The entirety of the growth over the last decades was the result of a growth in numbers of minority residents. On to our number 6 story. The Washington Supreme Court has declined to decide a case that sought to expose the identities of Seattle's police officer who attended events in Washington, D.C. on the day of the insurrection. In a brief order released Wednesday, the justice said they unanimously ruled to resend the case back to the trial court for further proceedings. The court left in place a restraining order that protects the officer's identity. 6 officers filed a lawsuit against the list of people who filed public records requests seeking their identities and information about the investigation by the officers of the police accountability into their activities in the nation's capital. A judge ordered the release of the names, but the officers appealed and secured a temporary restraining order. The names of the 2 officers were released after the investigation found that the officers who are married violated the law while in D.C. The oversight agency found that other 4 officers did not violate the law or policies. Caitlin and Alexander Everett were fired, and the 4 others continued their legal action to protect their identities, arguing they would face harassment if it was released. On to our 7th story. A robbery suspect was shot and killed by Metro Police Wednesday afternoon. Police were first notified about a man who committed multiple robberies, including one at a bank, when they found a vehicle that matched the description of the one used in the robbery near Cheyenne and Tenaya. Police attempt to stop the car. That's when they said the suspects got out of the car with a gun drawn. Metro then fired shots, striking the suspects. The name of the suspect, as well as the officers involved, has not yet been released. It is the second shooting involving the Metro Police in as many days. A man with a gun suffered a non-life-threatening wound after pointing a gun at a police who were trying to stop him at a trailer park near Lake Mead and Pecos on Tuesday afternoon. And now to our 8th story of the night. A student and 2 adult relatives of a student fought outside of a Little Flower High School in Philadelphia. Now, police are investigating. The fight was caught on camera outside of the Catholic Girls' School in the city of Hunting Park neighborhood on Tuesday. Officials say an interaction between those students in school led to the fight. They banned the adult relatives from the school's property. In a letter to the families, the school said, quote, "This is an understandably stressful and disheartening situation, but we want to assure you that we take very seriously our responsibilities to create a safe and secure environment for all of our children, faculty, and staff. And now, a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News 24/7. Stay tuned.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome back to Millennium News 24/7 Daily Local News Update. Now, on to our number 9 story of the night. North America's leaders are reviving three-way cemetery after a Trump-era break. As President Joe Biden, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador resume the tradition of the North America Leaders Summit on Thursday. The three allies face deep differences on migration, climate, and trade. There is not that much in common between them, at least in their version of what they want for their countries, said Kenneth Rickle, president of the Canadian Council for the Americas. Not just what they want for their countries, but what they can deliver for their countries. Thursday's meeting at the White House will be the first trilateral get-together for the North American leaders since a June 2016 gathering of Trudeau, Barack Obama, and Enrique Peña Nieto in Ottawa. The gathering took a hiatus under the President Donald Trump, who feuded with Trudeau and Nieto during his tenure. Biden has made some progress in repairing relations with the U.S. neighboring after the turbulent Trump years. But many significant strains remains, and some new ones have emerged. Trudeau arrived in Washington with concerns about Buy American provisions in the president proposed $1.85 trillion social services plan. Mexico's priorities heading into the summit were to obtain concrete advances on immigration and more equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines. The tradition of a three-way meeting started when George W. Bush played host to Mexico's Vicente Fox and Canada's Paul Martin in 2005 for talks at his ranch in Waco, Texas. And now on to our number 10 news for the night. In China, she enjoyed the privileges that flowed from being married to a senior member of the governing elite. Her husband was a top police official in the security apparatus that keeps the Communist Party in power. So trusted that China sent him to France to take up a prestigious role in the Interpol. But Meng Hongwei, the former Interpol president, has now vanished into China's sprawling penal system, purging in a stunning fall from grace. And his wife is alone with their twin boys in France, a political refugee under round-the-clock French police protection following what she suspects was an attempt by Chinese agents to kidnap and deliver them to an uncertain fate. From being an insider, Grace Meng has become an outsider looking in and says she is horrified by what she sees. In an exclusive interview with Associated Press, Meng chose for the first time to show her face, agreeing to be filmed and photographed without dark lighting and from the back camera angles that she previously insisted on, so she could speak openly and in an unprecedented detail about her husband, herself, and the cataclysm that tore them apart. I have the responsibility to show my face, to tell the world what happened, she told the AP. During the past 3 years, I've learned, just like we know how to live with the COVID, I know how to live with the monster, the authority. Among the global critics of China, many of them are now mobilizing against the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing. Meng brings the unique perspective of a former insider who has walked through the looking glass and emerged with her views transformed. So profound is the change that she has largely stopped using her Chinese name, Gao Ji. She says she now feels more herself as Grace, her chosen name, with her husband's surname, Meng. And now, on to our number 11 story. A darkness fell. About 250 police officers and city workers swept into a squalid camp for migrants hoping to apply for asylum in the United States. Migrants had to register for credentials or leave. Within hours, those who stayed were surrounded by enough chain link fence to extend twice the height of the Statue of Liberty. The October 28 operation may have been the beginning of the end for a camp that once held about 2,000 people and that blocks a major border crossing the United States. There may be more camps to come. First Lady Jill Biden sharply criticized a similar camp in Matamoros, bordering the Brownsville, Texas, on a 2019 visit, saying, "It's not who we are as Americans." The Biden administration touted it worked closing that camp in March, but others sprang up around the same time in a nearby Rizna and Tijuana. The camp full of young children are a product of policies that force migrants to wait in Mexico for a hearing in U.S. immigration court, or prohibits them from seeking asylum under the pandemic-related public health powers. Uncertainty about the U.S. asylum policies has also contributed to the growing migrant populations in Mexico border cities, creating conditions for more camps. Migrants are often out of the public view in border cities, but the Tijuana camp is highly visible and disruptive. Tents covered with blue tarp and black plastic bags block entry to the border crossing, where the average of about 12,000 people enter the U.S. daily before the pandemic. It is one of 3 pedestrian crossings to San Diego. The U.S. fully reopened borders with Mexico and Canada to vaccinated travelers November 8th. Montserrat Caballero, Tijuana's first female mayor, said officials did almost nothing to control the camp before she took office October 1st. When she asked Mexico state and federal governments to join her in erecting a fence and introducing a registry, they declined. The authorities at every level were scared of making a mistake, scared of doing something wrong and affecting their political careers, she said in an interview. No one wants to deal with these issues, Caballero said as she acted to protect migrants. She knows of no homicides or kidnappings at the camp, but the Associated Press found that assaults, drug use, and threats have become common. I could not close my eyes to the flashing red lights I saw, she said. Closing her eyes only allows it grow. The only entry exit is guarded around the clock by Tijuana's police. Migrants with credentials are free to come and go. There is no asylum process in the United States until further notice. Enrique Lucero, the city director of migrant services, told people who asked about the U.S. policies on a morning walk through last week. And now to our next story, number 12. More than 400 Iraqis sought to fly home from Belarus on Thursday, abandoning their hopes of reaching the European Union following more than a week of tensions at the bloc's eastern border, where hundreds of migrants remain stuck. A plane carrying an unknown number of expected to depart from Minsk in an early afternoon makes 2 stops, one in the city of Erbil and another in the capital of Baghdad. A total of 430 Iraqis have registered for flights home, and most of those were already at the airport, according to Iraq's consul in Russia. Majid al-Kalani. Since November 8, a large group of people, mostly from the Middle East, has been stranded in Belarus at the border crossing with Poland, trapped as forces from 2 countries face off against each other. Most are fleeing conflicts or hopelessness at home and aim to reach Germany or other Western European countries. The West has accused of Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko of luring the migrants to a border to use them as pawns to destabilize the 27-nation bloc in retaliation for its sanctions on his authoritarian regime. Belarus denies orchestrating the crisis, which has seen migrants entering the country since summer and then trying to cross into Poland, Lithuania, Latvia. Some 2,000 people are reported to have camped in the cold at the borders, some with children, and at least 11 deaths were reported in recent weeks as temperatures have dropped. Poland didn't want to let them in, and Belarus didn't want them returning to the capital of Minsk or otherwise settling in the country. On Tuesday evening, the Belarusian authorities offered to move people to a nearby warehouse where they were given a heated space to stay, mattresses, water, and hot meals. About 1,000 migrants were staying in the warehouse on Wednesday, and while another 800 people remained in the makeshift camp at the border, according to the Belarusian Red Cross. It's not clear if there are other migrants elsewhere in Belarus. The other of shelter came after a melee broke out on the border, with migrants throwing stones at the Polish forces massed on their side of a razor wire fence, injuring 12. And the troops responded with water cannons, and tear gas. The Warsaw accused Belarusian forces for instigating the conflict, while the government in Minsk denounced Poland's violent actions. Poland has taken a tough stand against the migrants' illegal entry, reinforcing the border with riot police troops and making plans to build a tall steel barrier. The Polish approach was largely met with approval from other EU nations, who wants to stop another wave of migration. But Poland also has been criticized by human rights groups and others for pushing migrants back into Belarus and not allowing them to apply for asylum. Lukashenko, meanwhile, has rejected accusations of engineering this crisis and said his government has deported about 5,000 illegal migrants from Belarus this fall. In May, however, he had railed against the EU sanction imposed on his country for a harsh crackdown in internal dissent, saying, "We were stopping migrants and drugs. Now you will catch them and eat them yourself." End quote. Now to our next story, number 13. Chinese Coast Guard ships blocked and sprayed a powerful stream of water at two Philippine boats carrying supplies to troops at the disputed South China Sea shoal, prompting Millennium to order Beijing ships to back off and warn that its supply vessels are covered by mutual defense treaty with the United States. Millennium top diplomat said Thursday. Philippine Foreign Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. said no one was hurt in the incident on Tuesday, but two supply ships had to abort their missions to provide food to the Filipino forces occupying 2nd Thompson Shoal, which lies off western Palawan province in the Philippines, internationally recognized exclusive economic zone. Locsin said in a tweet that 3 Chinese Coast Guard ships' actions were illegal and urged them to take heed and back off. It was the latest flare-ups in the long simmering territorial disputes in the strategic waterway where China, the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan have overlapping claims. China claims virtually the entire South China Sea and has transformed 7 shoals into missile-protected islands based to cement its assertion and ratcheting up tensions and alarming rival claimants and Western governments led by the U.S., the Philippine government convoy to China. Our outrage, condemnation, and protects of the incident, Locsin said, adding that this failure to exercise self-restraint threatens the special relationships between the Philippines and China. That President Rodrigo Duterte, his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping, worked to nurture. In Beijing, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijiang said China's coast guards had upheld China's sovereignty after the Philippine ships entered Chinese waters at night without permission. National Security Advisor Hermogenes Esperon told reporters in Manila that 2 Chinese Coast Guards ships blocked the 2 wooden hull supply vessels. A 3rd Coast Guard ship water cannon the 2 of 1 for 1 hour, he said, adding that the outrigger of one of the Philippine ships was displaced by impact. A water cannon is a device on fire trucks that shoots a high velocity of water from firefighting and crowd control, but has also been installed on Chinese Coast Guard ships to drive away what China considers intruders in the waters it claims. The Philippines plan to the number of Chinese surveillance ships has increased in recent weeks in the far-flung Shoal and also around Situ, a larger Philippine-occupied island in Spirati Archipelago in the South China Sea. Most hotly contested area, he said. Philippine forces won't be deterred from traveling again to the Shoal following the incident, he said. We will continue to resupply, and we do not have to ask permission of anybody because this is within our territory, Epstein said. The Philippine military deliberately ran aground on World War II era ships, the BRP Sierra Madre at the submerged Shoal in 1999 to fortify its claims and provide a shelter to a small contingent of Filipino Marines. The Sierra Madre is now effectively a rusty shipwreck, but the Philippine military has not decommissioned it. That makes the ship an extension of the government and means an attack on the ship is tantamount to an assault against the Philippines. In 2014, the Philippine military invited more than a dozen journalists, including from the Associated Press, on a resupply mission to the Shoal in bid to draw a global attention to what the Philippine officials have called China's bullying tactics. Two Chinese Coast Guard ships then tried to block the slow-moving military chartered vessel carrying the journalists, with one cutting dangerously through the Philippine ship path twice. The Chinese Coast Guards warned the Philippine vessels by radio to turn back, saying it was illegally venturing into Chinese territory. The Chinese ships blew their horns intimidatingly, but the boats managed to maneuver towards the Sierra Madre, though shallow waters dotted with rocky coral outcore, preventing the Chinese ship from pursuing. And now, a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News 24/7. Stay tuned.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV. Welcome to Millennium News 24/7 Daily Local News Update. Now, on to our number 14 news of the night. A pro-military minister in Sudan says time is running out for the country's deposed prime minister to agree to take a post in a military-led government after top generals seized power last month.
Security forces, meanwhile, opened fire on thousands of anti-coup protesters in the capital of Khartoum and its twin city of Durman, killing at least 15 people, according to doctors. Wednesday's tally was the highest daily count of people killed since the October 25th coup. The crackdown on protesters has come as the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is in Africa to boast thus far in unsuccessful U.S. diplomatic efforts to resolve the deepening conflicts in Ethiopia and in Sudan. Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok is currently under house arrest in the capital of Khartoum. He and more than 100 other government officials were detained during the coup. Many have been kept in undisclosed location. The country cannot wait forever, so if he doesn't take the job, then someone else will definitely take it. Jibril Ibrahim, the finance minister of the deposed government, told the Associated Press late Tuesday. Speaking from his office in Khartoum, Ibrahim said calls by some pro-democracy groups, the United States and its Western allies to return the pre-coup transitional government are unrealistic. Negotiations have forced on a convincing Hamdok to lead a technocratic cabinet that runs day-to-day affairs, he said. Ibrahim, 65, is a rebel leader who joined the government earlier this year after the transitional administration reached a peace deal with the rebel alliance, ending years of civil war. He was one of those leading protests against Hamdok and others in Khartoum before the top generals initiated their coup. He spoke to the AP ahead of rallies Wednesday in Khartoum and other cities across the country against the military takeover. Authorities have shut bridges linking to Khartoum and its twin city of Durman and tightened security across the capital. Security forces fired live ammunition and tear gas at anti-coup protesters in at least one location in Khartoum, according to the activists. The Sudan Doctor Committee said most of the killing took place in Khartoum's district of Bahari. It is said dozens of others were wounded as security forces used what the committee calls brutal repression against the protest rallies. A spokesman for the Sudanese police did not respond to the call seeking comments. The top U.S. diplomat for Africa, Molly Fee, condemned the violence against protesters and called for the respect and protection of human rights in Sudan. Magdi Mohammed Usman, a researcher with Human Rights Watch in Sudan, said the development shows the military has taken their power grab to a new level. He added that security forces have employed extreme levels of brutality against the protesters, including attacking healthcare facilities. And now to our next news, number 15. Some 20,000 people marched peacefully through the Athens on Wednesday to mark the anniversary of a bloody anti-dictatorship uprising in 1973, police said. More than 5,000 police were deployed to keep order as violence involving anarchist demonstrators have often marred the annual march to the U.S. Embassy. The events went ahead despite restrictions related to the pandemic, and most of the marchers wore masks. After the march, minor clashes briefly broke out in another part of town when some youth threw stones at police and set fire to dumpsters. A similar demonstration was held in Greece's second largest city of Thessaloniki, with about 14,000 participants. The march ended peacefully, but afterwards, youth threw petrol bombs at police who responded with tear gas and water cannons. No injuries were reported, and the police said at least 20 suspected rioters were detained. In 1973, student led pro democracy protests at Athens Polytechnics were crushed by police and troopers sent by military regime. Officers opened fire on unarmed demonstrators and bystanders near the Polytechnic, and the army tanks smashed in the gates of the university complex behind which many students were gathered. At least 20 are thought to have been killed, though the precise death toll of that November 1973 event remains unknown. But the uprising was followed by a punch within a military regime ruling Greece since 1967, which brought more hardlines officers into power. Democracy was restored only in July 1974 after the dictatorship collapsed in the face of the Turkish invasion of Cyprus. Provoked by the junta-owned machinations and aiming to unite the islands, whose majority in Greek speaking with Greece. Mostly left-wing demonstrators have marched to the U.S. Embassy every year since 1974 because Washington was seen as a supportive of Greece's far-right military regime. In a tweet Wednesday, Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis said the uprising reinforced the country's daily commitment to secure democracy. And now to our number 16 news. Air pollution remains extremely high in India's capital on Thursday, a day after authorities closed schools indefinitely and shut some power stations to reduce smog that blanketed the city for so much of the month. New Delhi's air quality remains very poor, according to the SAFAR, India's main environmental monitoring agency. The concentration of a tiny airborne particle less than 2.5 microns in diameter, known as the PM 2.5, neared 300 micrograms per cubic meter in some parts of the city, it said. The World Health Organization designates a maximum safe levels of 25 points. The tiny particles can lodge in lungs and other organs, causing long-term health damages. New Delhi, a new city of 20 million, is one of the world's most polluted cities. Air quality often hits hazardous levels during the winter when the burning of crops residue in the neighboring states coincides with the lower temperatures that traps the smoke. The smoke travels to New Delhi, obscuring the sky. Schools were closed indefinitely, and employees were asked to allow half of their staff to work from home for a week. Some coal-based power stations outside New Delhi were ordered to shut down, and construction activities were halted. The measures, however, are expected to have very little effect. Meanwhile, the New Delhi state government is weighing whether to lock down the capital after India's Supreme Court last week sought an imminent and emergency action plan to tackle the crisis. The PM 2.5 concentration has soared to nearly 15 times above the WHO's safe level on many days in November, and forecasters warn the pollution is likely to get worse in the coming days. New Delhi's pollution woes are due to various causes. Auto emissions contributes nearly 25% of the city's pollution in the winter, according to the federal government, and other sources of air pollution, including emissions from industries, smoke from firecrackers linked to festivities, construction dust, and agricultural burnings. Several studies have estimated that more than 1 million Indians die each year from air pollution-related diseases. In 2020, 13 of the world's 15 cities with the most polluted air were in India, according to the Swiss air quality monitoring company IQ Air. And this was your local daily news update for Millennium News 24. Log in to get the latest news. Our social networking sites, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, is Millennium News 24. Also, our YouTube channel is News Channel M24. Viewers now on both network broadcasting Android, iOS devices, and Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, also all smart TV platforms. So please enjoy our entertainment and the latest news and views. Our Millennium TV also have apps of Millennium TV USA Android, Millennium News Google, and you can also go on www.millenniumtv24.com. Stay tuned with Millennium News 24. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.